Allow me to remind you that this is my first flight video using the Canon EOS R100, and there were some manual settings that I made for the microphone, and obviously there will be some hard lessons learned from me. In other words, that's my way of saying I did a lot of sound editing on this video, mostly for volume and clarity's sake. But either way, this is a very beautiful day. This is going to be great weather, going from Houston Hobby to one of the busiest airports in the world, Atlanta-Jackson International Airport, better known as DeltaWorld. Just like Houston Hobby and Dallas Love is to Southwest Airlines, the same goes for Delta and Atlanta-Jackson International.
In the event of a water evacuation, use the life vest up under your seat. Remove the vest only if told to do so. Remove the vest only if told to do so. Pull the red strap to open the container and remove the pouch. Remove the vest from the pouch as shown on the safety information card. Place the vest over your head. Wrap the strap around your waist. Buckle it in front and pull to tighten. Once outside, pull down on the red tab to inflate the vest. To mainly inflate, blow into the tubing at your shoulder. Your vest has a light that turns on automatically in water. Please refer to the safety information card for use of life vests on an infant. Flight attendants will distribute additional vests if needed. We are coming out to check to see if your seatbelts are securely fastened. Seatbelt tray tables are on its foot upright and locked position. And all your carrying items are completely up underneath the seat in front of you, or an overhead bin, leaving the area around your feet clear. Smoking is not allowed on board, including in the lavatories. The use and charging of electronic cigarettes is prohibited. Federal law prohibits tampering with, disabling, or destroying any smoke detectors in any aircraft lavatory.
At the time of this flight, Southwest Airlines still had an open seating policy, and I went the extra length to make sure that I was on the first boarding group for this flight, A1 through 15. I wanted to make sure that I got a window seat in front of the wings and the engine, and to also make sure that I had a nice big open window to get the best scenes that I can. As I understand it, Southwest is going to do assigned seating within the next few months or in the upcoming couple of years. That may be subject to change, but that is what I am hearing from over here. Initially, I didn't think I was going to be a big fan of it, but considering how much I want a window seat, I think that would better serve me. Just for me and my purposes to spot and get the best imagery that I can on every flight that I take. For the fans of the Southwest Airlines livery, you can see Illinois 1 to the far left of this image. And actually you could have seen her throughout the entire point of this taxi up until now. This was also recorded on the same day, where the runway 13 right and 31 left was under reconstruction. So the only one that was being used for Southwest Airlines jets was runway 04 and 22. So as we continue on with this taxi, we will taxi along 04 and 22 as we make our way to the front of 04 for takeoff. So you will see plenty of takeoffs as well, just like you see right here on our way through the taxi. So enjoy the takeoffs as we continue our taxi. It truly is amazing how far built-in microphones and cameras have come. It's amazing that even with the jets humming as we are taxiing, that the microphone is still sensitive enough to hear me breathing. And I'm totally calm, and I've been working out a lot so I don't have to breathe so heavy. That just shows you how sensitive those microphones are. So make sure you are aware of that as you're taking recordings like this.
ladies and gentlemen have been cleared for departure. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy your flight.
Before we get to takeoff, I will tell you that for the duration of this flight, I'm using the 18 and 45 lenses on this Canon camera because I don't want to do any extreme close-ups during the flight, and I also want to make sure that I get enough of the engine and the wings as we're going along. Additionally, since Southwest has a very tight coach cabin, I wanted to make sure that I didn't disturb myself or the passengers right there next to me. And besides, I've learned through previous experience that trying extreme close-ups in flight doesn't always work out for the best. So I am not going to be quiet as we take off from runway 04 from Houston Hobby to Atlanta Jackson International Airport. Y'all enjoy the flight. Been on a flight before, then you know that takeoff thrust packs a lot of punch, and it really just keeps you there in your seat until your initial climb is done and you start reducing the thrust and get to cruising altitude. Now, as we're going along, I have to tell you that the built-in mic was overloaded with sound so much that it was distorted, and I had to bring down the volume on this down quite a bit. And if you listen here, you'll hear why. Ellington Field. That was me talking in flight, and as you heard, that was very, very distorted. Even if, as I was telling you, that was Ellington Field, part of the Houston airport system, that sound was obviously distorted because the microphone was set on too sensitive of a setting, and I didn't really pick up on this until about halfway through this flight, so I didn't make the adjustment until afterwards. So hopefully on the next flight, when we do takeoff, we hear a less distorted and less overwhelmed sound from the microphone. And so that is a hard lesson learned for me. It is such a cool feeling when you're in flight in a turn and you look straight down on a big residential community and your home area, and to see how beautiful it truly is from above. Pilots say that the more they fly, the closer they are to heaven, and I firmly believe that. Of course, you just have to climb up a little bit, look straight down, and you can see your own slice of heaven from where you are. And that is why I document as much of the flight as I can, because you'll never know what kind of beautiful sights you will behold. Enjoy the flight. Is very cool that Southwest Airlines has a free Wi-Fi guidance, so you can see exactly where you are in the world, how fast you're going, and at what altitude you are. And now you can see exactly where I am sitting on this flight. And that's how you do a status check. watching a movie or watching your favorite TV show, everybody has their own way of coping with a long flight or any flight for that matter. But for me, I choose to jam to my favorite music.
We're expecting a smooth ride, but for now, please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. We might get a few little bumps as we climb out, and that's the fun. Stay seated and buckle up also. Good news is, looks like we'll be touching down about 15 early, and then let up about 10 early, and then a gate about 105 local Atlanta time. Once again, please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened until we turn off that seatbelt sign. Thank you.
Around this point in the flight where I realized that my microphones were way too hot and I manually had to set them back down to a more sensitive setting. That's why they sound a lot more tame in this clip. They shall remain at this setting for the remainder of this flight and for the majority of my videos on this whole excursion.
Gentlemen, your flight crew is about to start our in-flight service. We're going to ask you to keep your arms and your legs inside the aisle. We got to keep the aisle clear so we can come through, folks, for the next 20 minutes or so while we serve our beverages. We appreciate your help. Please remain seated until the seatbelt sign is turned off by the captain. Shouldn't be too long.
This was by far the coolest point in the flight, where we are at cruising altitude. And not only do you see the beautiful canvas below you, but you also see the part of the atmosphere where it almost looks like there's a clear separation between the strong air pressure on the lower part of the atmosphere and the thinner part of the atmosphere as it goes up into space. It is almost like you're touching space, almost. It's one of those moments that you just never, ever forget, and you just want to see the entire duration of the flight. Because the majority of Southwest flights are less than 4 hours long, it makes sense that they only serve a snack and a beverage midway through the flight. And it works out for me. Those pretzels had a very nice taste to it and very flavorful. And also later on in the flight, I ordered a ginger ale, one of my favorite beverages to have while I'm mid-flight. That just works out for me. It's enough to tide you over from takeoff to landing. It was at this point in the flight that I realized that some high-level haze was going to cloud up some of my imagery a bit. So I knew this would be tough to have a long, continuous shot of the action. So for the next several minutes, there will be plenty of shots where I will jump from one section to another because the haze disrupted the focus of the camera. We have started our descent.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we make our final descent into Atlanta, please go ahead, store your laptop computers and similar sized electronic devices underneath that seat in front of you or in an overhead bin, leaving the area around your feet clear. You may continue to use those small portable electronic devices, however they must be in airplane mode and secured for the remainder of the flight. Please look down, double check that your seatbelts are fastened. Your seat backs and tray tables are in the full upright and locked position, and that all of your carrying items are underneath that seat in front of you, again leaving the area around your feet clear. Your flight attendants are going to pass through the cabin one final time to pick up any cups, cans, newspapers, or any other trash. We do recycle here at Southwest Airlines, so if you have anything you would like to recycle, you can pass that to the center aisle as well. Also double check that seat back pocket in front of you, and if you have anything you would like to discard, please tuck that to the center aisle. Please do not leave it in those seat back pockets. We certainly have enjoyed sharing part of our day with you, and welcome to Atlanta.
It was right here where I caught my first glimpse of Atlanta Jackson International Airport, so I knew very soon we would be making a hard left as we would prepare for final approach. but is just as powerful as takeoff thrust is reverse thrust on landing. And that's about as smooth of a landing as you could hope for. And yes, the reverse thrust, that's why you have the seatbelt on so you do not get ejected from your seat. That's how powerful it is. Either way, a great landing is a great landing. And we have arrived in Atlanta. Now as we taxi, you are going to see a lot of Delta birds. So enjoy seeing all the Delta birds as we get to our gate.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Atlanta. Please remain seated with your seatbelt securely fastened until the captain has parked the aircraft at the gate and turn off the fasten seatbelt sign. You may use your cell phones at this time, as long as they are accessible without removing your carrying items from its storage area or releasing your seatbelt. Use caution when opening the vents as items may have shifted during flight. If you are making a connection here in the Atlanta area, please check the TV monitors located throughout the concourse for flight and gate departure information, as well as directions to ground transportation and baggage claim. Certainly enjoyed having you on board. Welcome to Atlanta.
As we taxi to the gate, here are some interesting figures and facts about Atlanta Jackson International Airport. The following is from BusinessInsider.com. Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport is the busiest airport in the world. The sprawling airport in Georgia's biggest city sees more than 100 million passengers a year and nearly 300,000 a day. To support such a big operation, the airport employs more than 60,000 people, making it the biggest employer in the state of Georgia. The airport has been the busiest in the world for 21 consecutive years. There is a river that runs under the airport. The Flint River, which starts just north of the airport, actually winds its way underneath the airport. There is a 5K race held at the airport every year on one of the runways. Runway 1028, the fifth runway at the airport, plays host to the aptly named 5K on the fifth runway each year. The race bears the slogan, "You've flown over it, you've driven under it, now run on it." The airport was originally a racetrack. Hartsfield-Jackson is located on an abandoned racetrack once known as the Atlanta Speedway. The track was owned by Coca-Cola founder and former Atlanta mayor Asa Candler and operated from 1909 through the early 1920s. As part of an agreement to let the city develop the space into an airfield, Atlanta Mayor Walter Sims agreed to name the new site Candler Field. Today, Delta's corporate headquarters sits in what was the northern end of the track. There are rotating and permanent art exhibits between the terminals. Though most passengers take the airport train to and from different terminals, those who can walk can find the walls lined with artwork. One of the airport's permanent exhibits is along the walking concourse between terminals B and C. It's a comprehensive history of Atlanta. The airport employs 63,000 people, including airline, ground transportation, concessionaire, security, federal government, City of Atlanta, and airport tenant employees. There are 6 Starbucks in the airport. Now, this was not the end of the road for me on this particular day. Atlanta was a connection to my next flight, which will get me to my destination for the day. So there will be another flight video from this day coming up very soon on SFAPowerhouse. So keep an eye open for that, and I'll see you then. In the meantime, take care, God bless, and enjoy the flight.
Also, ladies and gentlemen, you are